Hi, I'm Brittany Pacheco.
And I'm fucked up.
And we are the Watchers in the Basement. Welcome back to our channel. Welcome if you are new, consider subscribing to our YouTube channel. Frank and I are here today to talk about season 2, episode 4 of AMC's Interview with a Vampire. Frank, you saying I'm fucked, or I'm fucked up, it's very appropriate. I just finished watching this episode 20 minutes ago. And holy crap, we're at the halfway point. Okay. Give me your initial overall thoughts on this episode.
It was dark, man. Like it was just like so many forms of abuse was like either conveyed, talked about, or exhibited throughout this episode. Whether it was Armand talking about his upbringing, like what he went through, whether it was seeing Claudia go through the daily treatment of playing this character that's so demeaning to her actual real life, to the tortures of Louis, like what he's going through with the I'm just not remembering of like pick up the pieces of his memories. Like the bottom line of this episode was just abuse of just all form of fashion of just taking up abuse and like how people are like dealing with it.
Absolutely. It was a very Claudia centric episode, which I think is great given that obviously we had a major recast with the Claudia character. Delainey delivered, no alliteration intended, but she delivered in this episode. And it definitely has to be one of my favorite performances from her thus far, because you do see the highs and the low of Claudia, because finally she's been accepted by the coven. You know, she's officially a member of the coven. She's been given a part to play in the Théâtre des Vampires, and she, welcomed it, right? She was so excited to feel like she has a family. She found the thing she's been looking for. But after 500 performances, it didn't really go over very well with her. And I think rightfully so. I mean, Frank, how would you feel like if you were entrapped in this childlike body, even though your mind and everything about you else has matured? I mean, like, can you see Claudia's perspective of things?
Yeah, I can't really see it because like I can't physically or mentally fathom it. It doesn't seem possible. It doesn't seem possible to like advance emotionally, mentally, as a being and still be stuck in like your adolescence phase. Like it's almost like a cruel joke. And that's gonna be my next question. Like, how do vampires mature if they're already like once you turn, you would think that you're just stuck, not just physically but mentally as well at that age or at that phase of life?
I'm not entirely sure, because I feel Armand in a previous episode had mentioned about how Claudia's mentality and her power cannot be contained with the body that she was made in, right? She was a teenager when she was made. And so I feel like there is some sort of maturity that happens for the vampires. Like, even though they're locked into this body, they still are learning. They're still growing. They're still maturing. Case in point, Louis. Louis is developing what appears to be the firepower, right? He's not officially Armand's companion, at least to Louis, even though Armand says otherwise. They're just typical fuckboy mentality at this point. But Louis is developing powers, just like Lestat developed his powers by being with Armand. So there has to be some sort of like growth, right? Whether it has to be outside of the physicality of it all. But I mean, I think personally, vampires do continue to mature. They do continue to grow mentally, emotionally, maybe not emotionally because they're all fucked up. But I don't know. I mean, does that make sense? Yeah, it does make sense. Okay. and
Yeah,
I'm
it
gonna put
does
it
for
to the
sure.
audience. I'm gonna put it to the audience too. Listen, Frank and I are just huge fans of this show. It's been, I don't know, 15 plus years since either one of us have read Interview with a Vampire. We don't proclaim to be experts here. We're very, very honored to have people who have watched this pod and correct us. Like, we don't know everything. It's okay. We're Jon Snow. We know nothing. And we do really appreciate everyone who has taken the time to check us out, correct us, give us their feedback. Y'all are the real ones. We appreciate it. So that being said, Frank, let's dive a little bit deeper into this episode. As I said, it is very much a Claudia-centric type episode because we see how she's basically facing the disillusionment of being accepted by the other vampires. But she definitely kind of gets a like, whoa moment with Armand in the very end of the episode because Armand's also going through it. Like there's just a lot happening with these main characters, right? So let's talk about the breaking up, if you will, of Claudia with Louis because of Armand. That was a pretty big theme in this episode. Like, you talk about abuse. Armand has punished Claudia by making her wear her baby doll dress, even off the stage, until she falls back in love with it, right? But Armand is also, being enchanted by Louis, but he's also losing his reign on the coven. Let's talk about those sort of things and how everything's kind of like falling apart.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, like, again, like, I think I said this last week too regarding Armand, like, and he said it as well in last week's episode. The most powerful sometimes the most weak, and after weakest. And Armand comes off as somebody who, for one, didn't ask to be a vampire. Now that we know what happened to him, the amount of abuse that he went through, being on a ship and like just kind of just being passed around as a young 20-year-old or a young man in his 20s, even being turned. And one thing I do love about like this vampire world is that you adopt what your human form was. And like Armand, as powerful as he is, for as long as he has lived, he is still that young 20-something-year-old boy that was on that ship that day or those years. Like he's meek. He's at times hesitant. Even with leadership, like he doesn't want to lead. I think he just wants to exist and eventually have his end. And a lot about his character that was conveyed to me was how he handled Lestat and that heartbreak. Like he held on to that for years and years and years. And I think at times he's so tied to his emotions and he's so tied to like the rejection of all, whether it's Lestat rejected him and ghosted him, whether it's his crew, his vampire clique, like turning those up to him. He doesn't do well with rejection and failure, and he wears on his sleeve. And I think that's tied to like what he was in his human form. And even till now, you can tell that he's losing his grip on the vampires, and Louis is his only semblance of happiness, even as ambiguous as the relationship is, of like not being, quote unquote, like exclusive with each other. Just being in his presence, he's happy. He lets Louis do a lot of things that's typically against, the covenant. Even though Louis is not with the covenant, but like him being in love with Louis is really creating a lot of discord with other vampires because he gets away with so much. But tied to that is that he wants to be wanted so bad that he's willing to break the rules, and that's what Armand is, in a nutshell.
I think that's well said. Armand has even articulated that he is losing grip. Like, I think he pretty much openly says that, right? And he has to address the issues with the coven, particularly that of Santiago, who is, openly berating Louis. He doesn't want to be part of the coven. He reads his stories during the performances. He openly hunts and is not being very discreet about the whole thing. And Armand just has a blind eye when it comes to Louis. And obviously it's because of love. It's because of the sense of companionship that maybe Armand feels towards Louis at that point. But Louis doesn't want a label. And it goes to show, I think on both fronts for Armand and Louis, trauma carries. And when you're an immortal, it's going to carry even more so, because like what is time for an immortal? You know, things could have happened. Armand and Lestat happened 150 years prior to Louis and Armand getting together, right? And he carried that weight of Lestat, you know, on his shoulders. So for Armand having had the upbringing, well, I say upbringing, but the life that he lived. And by the way, I thought that was beautifully spoken when they're looking at the painting. I'm assuming this is the Louvre. If it's not the Louvre, it's one of these museums in Paris, and it's stunning because, gosh, I was almost a art history major, so me and paintings, like, whoa. But it was a beautifully well said story, and it makes you understand Armand a little bit more. But you see how much trauma he has endured, and having some sense of order, or having some sense of reign, I think, is that security for Armand. But for Louis, because he has dealt with the idea of having someone over him, right? Someone who called all the shots. He just kind of wants to go with the flow, right? He doesn't want to have labels, it seems. He doesn't want to like make it a big thing, because the last time he did, look where it got him with Lestat. He fucking murdered him, or at least he thinks he did, right? It's a really interesting dynamic to see these two and how they have dealt with their trauma. And Claudia's still dealing with her trauma. Like, let's not forget, Claudia has her own demons as well, and she said it, you know, to multiple people about how she feels being perceived as a child, being on stage doing performance after performance, and she's got a following, right? She's got a fan club. It's great, but she really opens up to the least likely person, and that is the dressmaker named Madeline. Frank, tell us about Claudia and Madeline. What are your thoughts about these two?
Well, from this episode, because we just found out, right, of like why Madeline is an outcast in this city, and you know she acquired a Nazi soldier. They had relations, and the town has never forgot about it. Like, you know, there's scenes of the swastika, you know, drawn on the window. And at first, I thought she was a Nazi sympathizer. That's what it looked like to me. But then when she tells a story to Claudia about like what she did and the man that she met, it makes sense. They both come from hurt. Like, again, it goes to that main theme of just pain and hurt and abuse. And you know, and like you can tell she's paid her dues. Like, she's been there for years, just making dresses in peace, just trying to make a living, an honest living, you know. And due to the man that and I'm not even sure she even loved the guy. It was a little boy that she was smitten by, but like they were both inexperienced or whatever.
She
and
just
like,
wanted a one night stand. I mean, like,
that's what it sounded like to me. Just she was trying to get her muffin buttered, and now it's turned into like a whole lifelong being ostracized by the very town that she lives in. And I thought it was beautifully well done and conveyed on like how we find out how much Claudia and Madeline have in common due to this ostracization of like the very people they live among by. Claudia, the vampire theater, and the people that she's living with / you know, performing for, and Madeline, you know, just a dressmaker who's trying to make an honest day's work and make money just to thrive. And that pain brings them together. You know, there's so much symmetry with all these characters when it comes to pain and abuse and like how they deal with it. And Madeline is like before you see Claudia even there, like she seemed very satisfied with her life. Like she took on the chin, like, look, these are I got paid my dues. This is what happens when, you know, I lay with the quote unquote enemy. And I gotta make my bed and live in it. Cause she never left. She stayed there the whole time. She never moved away. She stayed there. So, and I guess in her way, it was like, I come to terms with my decisions, and I don't regret it. Cause she's still there. So.
Right. No, and I think for Claudia, she has an interesting line when she's with Madeline getting like fitted for a dress that for one she's thrilled I'm sure to be out of the baby doll dress that's meant for the stage, but they're having like a real conversation and Claudia's talking about, I've seen a lot, I've seen the war, I've dealt with bad people, I've endured a lot of bad things. And then she makes kind of a poignant sort of observation about herself about maybe I chase it. Maybe I keep chasing for the things that have happened to me, right? And that's echoed again later when Claudia is having it out with Louis because Claudia has been for all intents and purposes to say attacked by Armand because he finds her in the dress shop and it almost seemed like Claudia was going to pounce on Madeline because Madeline was bleeding. Either she got her time of the month or something, but she's bleeding through, and you see the fangs appear on Claudia. Again, you think maybe she's gonna, break one of these great laws, right? And Armand intercepts, takes her back, and she's having it out with him. She's saying all the things that are in her heart about feeling embarrassed being on the stage and being seen as a child for time and all eternity. And Armand, lets her know, hey, I know the thing that you've done with your maker. I know about it all. And it puts the fear of God in her, I would say. I think that's safe to say. When she goes back to Louis and Louis insists to Louis, hey, Armand knows about Lestat, Louis like, okay, yeah. And she's like, wait a minute. Like, how long has Armand known? Hey, he's known the whole time. And he's just very like casual about it. We can trust him. It's okay. And she's like, oh my God, you've chosen another male over me again. You said, Louis, it was me and you and me and you. And you keep chasing the thing that is bad for you, basically. I mean, she was on point, right?
Was she on point? Was she on point? You sure she was on point?
To me it seems she was on point, but then again Louis did have a good argument saying that she was unhappy in New Orleans, she was unhappy in Vampire Land, she was unhappy in Paris, she's unhappy with the coven. I mean, but she called it for what she saw. I agree too with her to an extent that Louis is also a victim of chasing after the thing that is bad for him, right? It's like I'd imagine if someone were in an abusive relationship and they feel they can't get out of it, they feel they deserve it. I'm not sure. I'm not like trying to sugarcoat anything or make it lesser than what it is. But it just seems Claudia definitely had a point, but Louis had a point right back at her.
I'm so tired of Claudia's spoiled motherfucking ass. She's so fucking spoiled. So spoiled. If it wasn't for Lestat and Louis, she would have been dead in that fire years ago. They saved her. They saved her motherfucking life. So yeah, I chose Lestat over you because bitch, I knew Lestat before I knew you, motherfucker. Like what are we talking about here? Like what are we talking about here? And on top of that, you this happy go lucky journey of flying across the Atlantic, going to Eastern Europe, chasing fucking fictional fucking deformed vampires. That was Claudia's idea. Then from there they go to fucking Paris. The Homo Lestat, the guy that you murdered, the maker that you fucking murdered, brought you into the lion's den. Who idea was that? Oh, it was Claudia's idea. Claudia wanted to join the goddamn covenant. Who idea was that? It was fucking Claudia's idea. Like this is all fucking Claudia's fault. If they would have stayed in Chicago or stayed, they could have gone. I've said this for like 4 episodes now. They couldn't have gone anywhere else in the world, anywhere else, Australia, Antarctica, fucking Iceland, wherever. You go to the home of the person that you murdered, and not only that, you join the coven of the person that co-created the fucking vampire theater itself. This is all fucking Claudia's doing, and then he didn't want to. And Louis stayed in Paris because she wanted to stay in Paris. He didn't want to. He didn't want to join the coven. He stayed because she's there. If she wasn't there, Louis would have been left. He would have been found somewhere else to go.
Well, I mean, there was Armand. I don't think Louis was even going to leave because of Armand. I mean, does he stay for Claudia? Sure. He's tied to her, right? For all intents and purposes, he's her father figure, right? But even Louis says to Armand, he wasn't leaving. Like, he's staying in Paris, he's staying in France, he's not going anywhere, but he still wasn't going to join the fucking coven because that's just not his jam,
But
right?
it's the danger that Claudia put Louis in, because you Louis not going to coven. He's now in constant danger, not with
Yes.
Armand, but with Armand's lackeys. It's all because Claudia wants to feel accepted and wants to be part of a fucking family. Well, now, bitch, you got your family now. Now, wear that little blue dress and be happy with it now, because this is your fucking creation.
This is a great segue to talk about a comment that Connor here in the live chat has left. Thank you, Connor, for being here, watching, leaving your comment. Connor says, I believe Louis has doomed Claudia by convincing Armand to let Santiago think he is running the coven. It was a great point in this episode, and like I said, we're halfway through the season at this point. It's kind of, now we're tipping, right? We're tipping that iceberg to start going in a different direction, and it's no surprise at all, really, that Santiago is vying for the maitre spot in the coven, right? To be the master of the coven. He already has lackeys, right? They already referred to him as such, right? When he goes to the apartment that Louis and Claudia share, he's investigating. He's aware of Claudia's journals that she's keeping, even though one of their great laws is basically to not write the histories of their time.
Journals. Why history? This is my problem with her. Like, I know you're mad at Louis, but you're creating every single scenario to get caught.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, you're right. Right. So, and we have to even go back even further to earlier in the episode. Of course, Santiago openly had it out about Louis, who's sitting in the audience, and he's reading his book as they're having this big argument. They have it out once again out in public at dinner when Santiago is mimicking Louis and kind of discovering that, hey, that accent of yours isn't really Chicago. Like, it's more Cajun. It's more New Orleans. We got to talk about that scene real quick, Frank, before we go even further. Holy hell, to see the level of Louis like flip out on Santiago was wild to me. Absolutely wild. And then to see how Armand just like shut everyone down, including the vampires. Like, give me your thoughts and reaction to that episode or that scene.
Well, first off, I didn't know Louis had that kind of power to like even come at Santiago like that, because I thought Santiago was older, and most time with older vampires you can't really overpower them. But the way he handled Santiago, it was like at the flick of the wrist, like this is light work. Like, a bitch, I'm about to wash you on cycle. And like I was surprised by how powerful, how quick he was, how he had his tongue in his hands. Like, he was about to snatch his tongue out of his mouth. And like, now Santiago is older, right? Like, he is older.
We're gonna presume that Santiago is older than Louis. Louis is probably all of 30, 35 in the sense of his making, what have you. But yes, Santiago, we're just gonna go ahead and say he is older. Y'all who are watching, please correct us if we're wrong. We just want to make sure we're getting the information correct. But go ahead.
Because he looked powerless in Louis' grasp, and that's why I was kind of surprised, because I could swear he got made hundreds of years ago, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Santiago was just caught off guard by Louis. I don't know, and Louis just caught him off guard. But like, I was surprised by how Louis handled him.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of like how I feel growing up would handle things, coming from the hood. It's like, say it again, like, just Louis was in his element. Like, that New Orleans came out real quick.
That was Pimp Louis from 1910.
Okay. Let's go there.
That was a John coming in, not paying that whole full price, and he had to come in and regulate. That was that Louis.
That was that Louis. Yeah, no, it was great. But for Louis to get to that level, and then for Armand to react the way that he did, having to use his power on not only the humans in the restaurant, but the coven itself, right? He basically told them to go to sleep, right? I mean, they just slammed their heads on the table, and it was just Armand, Santiago, and Louis who were still awake and present. And it's like, enough. It was just, I was like, oh my God. And it was really at that turning point for me to see the weakness that is now in Armand because of how he feels towards Louis. He's putting Louis before the covenant, and Santiago sniffed it out. He pounced on it, and he's using that as his ammo to try and basically stage a coup, I guess you could say, in order to take power from Armand to be leader of the covenant.
He's playing a dangerous game. This is an old ass vampire who's been around the block. And like to even like try to attempt to adjacently upstage Armand, knowing his stature and knowing how powerful he is, boy, that is balls deep risky. That is very risky to like even try that with Armand. Louis, I get, but like Armand, like come on, fam, like he can just he can turn you into a 5-year-old little girl and then split you in half, like mental. Like I was surprised by how defined he was, because he knows how Armand feels about Louis. Like he knows this. Like this is no secret. No. And to even like and to like outlet like just like publicly like chastise Louis like that in front of his lover, that's wild, bro. That was ballsy.
It was. It 100% is, because Armand, with snap of the fingers, I'm sure he could have gotten rid of Santiago right there and then if he really felt compelled to do such. But going back to the point of Louis telling Armand to basically step down, let Santiago think he has reign on the coven. And then when he fails, because everyone's going to see it, they're going to come begging you, Armand, to come back and be leader of the coven. Now, I mean, for the book readers, I mean, it's been a long time since we've read the books, but this is also going to be interesting to watch to see if this unfolds the way that Louis is suggesting. And is it dooming Claudia, as Connor is suggesting here in the chat? In your opinion, Frank, is it dooming Claudia to have Santiago as the maître of the coven?
Not just Claudia, it's dooming Armand too, because we already know that Santiago has an inordinate amount of people are already on his side. You give Santiago like unparalleled power. Who's to say that he won't convince the whole lot of the coven and turn the whole coven against Armand? So it's not just putting Claudia at risk; it's putting Armand and Louis at risk, all of them at risk. Who are not named, who are not the rest of the coven. So,
I mean, Armand did also show his hand to Santiago after he showed his hand to Claudia, right? Claudia was sent off, hey, go tend to your chores. I don't want to hear another word from you. And then Armand reaches, back behind this pillar and grabs Santiago and kind of, tells him off as well, saying, I can't even remember all that he said. But Armand is still trying to hold on to some sort of power. Like, don't fuck with me, basically. But to me, when I'm seeing all that happen, is a sign of weakness. Like it absolutely, it's like the final straw that you may have left before it breaks or before it's gone. Am I making sense? I feel like I'm not making sense, but it's the last attempt in order to keep that power within your grasp before someone else takes over. Real quick in the chat, Amber of all of Amber's Wands, our wonderful friend here, also on the podcast, she says Claudia always bites off more than she can chew due to her desperately wanting a place to belong. She messes up a lot, but I think her needs and wants outweighs her logical reason.
Bars, Amber, bars.
For sure. Amber also says, Google says that Santiago was turned in 1800. He was 25 when he was turned, so he should be around 100. So given the time that we're in Paris, it's after World War II. So Santiago is north of 100 for sure. So he's what, 145, 46, give or take.
That's also surprised by how easily Louis handled him. I'm like, Louis like 40. He's like, how you? How 35? How is he like
something like that?
Easily just manhandling this old ass vampire.
Yeah. I think obviously for the show they've had to like age up, because Ben Daniels does not look anything 25 years old. But if he is, let's say, at least 150 years old, it would make sense given it just would make sense. He appears to be older, right? And he appears to have some sort of like seniority when it comes to some things. So let's also talk about how how Lestat plays a role in this episode. And I absolutely giggled so much seeing Sam Reid in this episode, especially during moments where he's kind of like agreeing with Louis. Louis having like a meltdown because his photographs got rejected for a gallery. He is openly talking out loud to ghost Lestat or imaginary Lestat, and Lestat in one instance is like eating a photograph, like it's just edible. And listening to Armand speak telepathically to Louis and reciting Romeo and Juliet. Give me something, Frank. Like Sam Reid as Lestat. We've already talked about how wonderful he is. What are your thoughts on his performance in this episode?
I think his performance is an extension of Louis' guilt. It's just continued guilt of like trying to move on. It's why Louis is so in this like limbo, the state of limbo, ambiguity with Armand. Armand wants something serious, and like Lestat is like he's like the symbolism of like, I'm not ready to move on. I'm still stuck on my past lover. And I think that's Louis lashing out on his decision. I don't think that's really Lestat. I think that's Louis. That's Louis' conscience lashing out of like not wanting to move on and be with Armand and like just move on in general from like the guilt of like killing Lestat. Now Sam Reid's doing a great job of like the narcissism, the temper tantrums, the just him having attitude and being, just being very like low cunning towards Louis. But I think that what the director is trying to show here, and this is me just guessing, I think the director is just trying to show that this is the ugly side of Louis of not being ready to like let go of like what was. It's hilarious. It's funny. It's sad. He's petulant. He's defiant. All of that, and then I think too, Armand knows, and based on like Armand being able to read minds, alter minds, he knows that Lestat is still embedded in Louis' mind. And that's why it's so bad he's trying to solidify the relationship, because I think in Armand's mind, being able to solidify what they are puts Lestat's soul to rest for good.
I think that's very well said, Frank. You make excellent points, but none more excellent than Amber's phrase about Louis. Louis Delulu. Yes, he is. He very Delulu. Like, we all live in a Delulu world, and Louis is no exception. So, but I love seeing this Lestat because obviously it's the Lestat based on Louis' mind, right? What he wants Lestat to do or Lestat to say, or even what he wants to wear. That final, what we think is going to be maybe the final appearance of Lestat in Louis' mind as they're sitting in a Parisian park bench. It's raining, and he's wearing this kind of like red suit. Like, why am I wearing this suit? It's like, oh, because it's my favorite. It's my favorite, and it's like, okay, well, clearly this is all made up in Louis' mind. Talking about not talking, but it's you're visually seeing Louis let go of Lestat, right? The symbolism of taking down the umbrella so that the rain is washing away the Lestat, and Lestat is still saying like sweet nothings to Louis, talking about how he had Louis' initials embroidered into the pocket that I guess was like above his heart or something like that. I don't know. I think it was just extremely well done. And I'm like, no, this can't be the end of Lestat. Like, I want to see more of this Delulu state of mind of Louis and Lestat. I mean, it's just, they just work so well together. Like, these two men are just phenomenal. I mean, I don't know how else to elaborate.
No, they are. I mean, even Malloy, in present day, he asks Louis, like, do you have schizophrenia? Do you have a mental ailment? Like, what do you? And like, I think what startled me the most is that this is 70 years later, and he still doesn't know what that was. Like what that was that took place in the 1940s of this state of hysteria that he was going through. I don't know. That's wild to me.
It is, and I'm glad you mentioned Daniel because I want to transition to talking about the modern day interview that's being conducted by Daniel with the two vampires. It still seems like Armand is still trying to control the narrative, talking over Louis, talking about things that Claudia may be feeling when really maybe Armand actually didn't know at all. He's just trying to say, "Oh no, it's happy life, happy, happy everything. We were doing great." And trying to just push away whatever Louis had to say. Even more so when Louis was showing the photos to Daniel and Daniel was reviewing them. He's like, "Hey, like this one photo is really, really nice." And Louis is like, "That's not mine. That's someone else's." Like, and he's looking throughout the whole box. "This is mine. I'm not trying to misrepresent, someone else's work as my own." And he was really offended by this. So we're still seeing glimpses of how perhaps that theory of Armand having a mind altering power is still possibly being used on Louis. And even when Louis or Armand are speaking, or even Daniel has a question, we're seeing like these cutaways of Armand inside Daniel's mind, fucking with him about things from the past, almost like scaring Daniel into not pursuing that particular topic. What do you make of all that?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think Armand's hiding something. I think not just back then, not just in the 40s or 30s, but also in the 70s in this interview. Like something happened to where Armand is like covering up with these cutaways of him in Malloy's mind. And I think we're gonna find out as soon as next week, based on the trailer for next week. And I have a theory too regarding that. I don't think we know Louis attacked Malloy, right? I don't think that was Louis doing the attacking. I think Armand did the attacking through Louis, is what I think.
Oh,
Because that's just not based on what we've known of Louis for the last 12 episodes now, since going back to season 1.
mm-hmm.
His temper, he's a very mild-mannered vampire. And to excite violence, oftentimes he's in defense.
Mm-hmm.
He's protecting something that he loves dear to his heart. Like he's not a violent vampire of like just like attacking people unprovoked. And I think Armand, I think what we see in those flashbacks and what they talked about in season 1 about that interview in the 70s, I think that was sparked through Armand.
Interesting. I like it. Because we see clips of Armand saying basically no, he wasn't going to take part in the interview. Hey, have fun, like, do your thing, that kind of thing. Louis wants to get the real story out. But what version is this real story? Is it Louis's version or is it the Armand influenced version, right? So I think you're onto something here. I'm very curious to see how this is going to play out, but staying with this episode and talking about Daniel, because we're seeing again more and more of Armand invading Daniel's mind and saying things about Daniel's past that really seem to be jarring. For example, something about this female wouldn't do him, or he wouldn't do this female unless she had a bag over her head. And when she did, that's when I guess he did something. But then you're seeing like this plastic bag over some man's head. And for me personally, Frank, I don't know about you, it looked like the dealer from when Louis was trying to get his photos to be on exhibit. And it's like, did Louis go back and kill that person, or did Armand go and kill that person? And also, why would that show up in Daniel's head unless Daniel himself killed someone and has suppressed that memory? And maybe Armand's going in there and unlocking that suppressed memory, or he's interjecting memories that are not actually Daniel's.
Girl, you said a lot right there.
Sorry, I know.
No, it has me thinking because like I couldn't make out who who was that with the bag over his head? I know
So
the
it's
person
someone with a mustache.
with a mustache. Yeah.
Yeah.
It could be any of those. It could be somebody from Talamasca, because something tells me Talamasca is gonna show up again. It could be somebody from there that got too close, maybe, and Armand either killed him or killed him through Malloy, and now Malloy is stuck with those memories. Now it could be. It's so, because like, again, the time Masker showed up last week. I don't think they showed up as a one episode thing. I think that's a leeway to something big. And another theory I have, I think that interview that took place in the 70s, I think Malloy probably told somebody that was part of the Telemaska and he doesn't remember it. And that person got caught in the crossfire. That's my theory. Cause like,
Ooh, I like it.
and I think Armand knows about Telemaska, and I think Armand found that out, and I think he eradicated them either through Malloy or Louis. Because right now Louis and Malloy's memories are all shattered right now. They don't know what's real, what's fake, what's been altered. Yeah, man, Armand is doing some puppet mastering right now, and I think both Malloy and Louis are victims right now of it.
I think you're onto something too, because the files that are on Daniel's computer that I guess were placed on there by the guy of the organization that you're talking about, how he called up the front page of the newspaper when the theater burned down. And when he asked about that, Armand's like, he leans forward and was all, that wasn't part of the package of the archival information we've given you.
Bingo.
And that's when he starts, kind of interjecting himself into Daniel's mind to scare him and that kind of thing. And Daniel will back down, but then he starts investigating a little bit further in those files. He starts searching keywords of Rome, which was a Roman coven where Armand got his name, what have you. Starts researching other things, starts researching his own name, and he comes across a name, I guess, from the 1970s. I think it was a female too. It was like either Kelly Mitchell or Kathleen Mitchell. I don't know. It's Kay Mitchell. Okay, that's all I remember. And that seems to be jogging some sort of memory in Daniel. And when he looks for his own name and he sees archival footage of like photos of him and Louis walking down the street, and then there were like 3 others in a photo.
That's weird that Armand has surveillance. That was Armand's files?
I don't think those were Armand's files. I think that those were files maybe that organization had placed into his computer. However, where those files originated from remains to be told, because unless maybe they were from Armand and then that organization infiltrated, or maybe the organization has just been tailing Daniel because he was interviewing a vampire. You see what I'm saying? Like there's a lot happening. There's a lot of moving parts that are going on.
Those are surveillance photos. Those are taken undercover. The way that they're taking outside the building, coming downstairs, walking alongside the building. Someone was spying on them, and I think you might be on something. I think whoever gave him whoever offered his help in last week's episode is the one that has all of those, and I think Armand killing that person, I think, is what sparked more of like an interest of trying to like see about these vampires, even dating back to the fire of the theater. So
because even Louis was like, the fire, kind of like, what are you talking about? Like, he had no recollection of what Daniel was questioning, and it seems to be a constant theme with Louis, how he doesn't recall certain events, especially that revolve around Claudia, right? How she wrote something in her journal, and he's like, no, that it didn't happen like that. It happened this way. And it's like, well, now I'm confused as to what is actually true. If it's Louis really recalling the memory, or if it's Armand placing memories in Louis's mind. And something interesting here that Amber says, regardless if it's Armand or Louis, we sort of have to just hope they're telling the full story. They're under no oath to be fully blatant or honest to Daniel. And that's what makes it like very frustrating because I feel like we're jumping back and forth a lot, and it's kind of hard to keep track as to what's actually happening. I feel like I need to watch these episodes like 2 or 3 times before I can fully understand it and comprehend the events that are taking place, because it seems like Armand is trying to scare the hell out of Daniel from prying, right? Asking, the questions that Armand doesn't want to be asked, right? He doesn't want maybe Louis to remember the truth of it all for reasons, whether it's because it makes Armand look bad or maybe it's going to trigger Louis. You see what I'm saying? Like I don't know the reason, obviously, for what's transpiring.
Wasn't that episode this season where Louis plead? I hope I didn't get Armand in this as well. But wasn't that episode where like Louis pleading to Armand about the diaries, Claudia's diaries?
It was this season. He did
right?
ask, yes, he did ask Armand to review the pages that had been torn out of
Yes.
Claudia's diary because he wanted to remember. Not that he was going to divulge the information to Daniel, but
Yeah.
he himself wanted to remember. So it seems like Louis has a lot of lost memories, whether that's because he has been under some sort of power to have lost these memories, or he himself asked to not remember certain things. I don't know. It remains to be seen. But it seems for certain that Louis doesn't remember things as they actually were. He's only recalling things that maybe have been told to him or fed to him.
Let me ask you this. Do you think Louis knows Claudia's fate or what happened to Claudia at all?
I feel he does, because it seems that when they speak on Claudia, it's always in the past tense. So he's aware that she's no longer with them. Now, whether that means in their capacity, like just living with them, or just in general, I feel like he is aware of her fate, but how it got to that point or the events of maybe her demise, he doesn't remember. And if he may or may not have had a hand in it, or if his paramour has had a hand in it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
For sure, I will say that Madeline is going to play a very important role in Claudia's life. That much I do remember from the books. And of course, like in the 90s movie with Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise. So I think at this point, Frank, because we've made it to halfway through the season, things are really going to pick up. And it's not just going to pick up with the audience learning the story about these vampires, but Daniel himself, the very fact that something transpired in the 70s interview and Daniel is going to confront Louis and say, I want to know what happened that night. Tell me everything. Wild.
Can't fucking wait.
I know. I'm with you right there. So, I mean, we could keep going on and on and on about this episode and dive into every little detail about it, but we would be sitting here for hours on end. So I think, Frank, this is probably a good stopping point. What say you? Yeah.
I'm down. Yeah.
Cool. So that being said, everyone, we appreciate those who have joined us for today's pod. Let us know in the live chat. Hopefully you'll join us for the next live chat next week. What your thoughts are on the episode, what questions you may have for us. And please, as always, please correct us if we've got something wrong. We're not experts. We just have a lot of fun doing these reviews and recaps and reactions. That's kind of what we do here in the Watchers in the Basement. I want to give a quick shout out to those who joined us in today's chat. Amber, of course, of all of Amber's Wands. King B. Johnson, appreciate you being here. And Connor, with the great question or the great comment about Louis basically dooming Claudia by having Santiago take the lead on things. So with that being said, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel in case you already haven't. Like this video if you've enjoyed our review, and hit that notification bell the next time that way you know the next time we'll go live. And as always, don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Threads, all at Watchers Basement. Use the hashtag Watchers Basement to spread the word. Help us grow our audience. And lastly, if you're not into video podcasts, we've got audio podcasts available to you on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Thanks. so much for those who have already subscribed to us and follow us. Please continue to do so and give us a 5-star rating. All right, Frank. So that wraps it up. Any final thoughts?
Let's find out what happened in 1970, whatever. Let's get it.
All right. Oh, and Connor just left a really sweet comment. Thank you. You both are my favorite when it comes to this show. We really appreciate
Thanks,
that,
Connor, man.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We enjoy having y'all here. And once again, please join us for our next review for episode 5 of season 2's Interview with the Vampire. Until then, I don't like the windows when they're closed, Frank. To quote Claudia's god-awful song. Jesus.
Shout out to Madeline Finance, too.
Frank wants to get it. All right, y'all. Thank you once again. Have a great night, day, wherever it is you are, and we'll see y'all next time.